Child can't understand basic biology of a dog and becomes extremely abusive. Mum thinks it's cute. Okay, so this isn't going to be your typical I have thing child wants. I say no. Parent gets annoyed. Never see them again story, cause this is a story of a family I have to see regularly and there are so many stories I have about them, so if you want to see those as well, just let me know. So we know this family cause our dads work together. The dad is actually super nice and a really great guy, but he is pushover. His wife and daughter on the other hand, a very different story. Like I said, I've had many events with these people, but here is one of the most memorable. So my family and I had a few days down at the beach, and the day before I had gotten really bad sunburn. Like it was only the next day and it was blistering already sunburn. Obviously this was extremely painful, remember this for later. But anyway, we were invited to this family's housewarming party since they had just moved and they knew we were already staying in the area. This housewarming party also happened to be on the same day as their daughter's birthday party. I'm sure you can see where this is going. So we turn up and we'd already gotten the whole make sure you bring a gift for us and our daughter, so we gave the gifts and everything was fine. We mingled and chatted with people. The daughter teased me about my sunburn and repetitively tried to hit it. All was normal and bearable for about 10 minutes. While there are no more small children running around, their 8-year-old daughter seems pretty certain that all this fuss is for her and proceeds to order everyone at the party around. Things like taking phones and jewelry or demanding that she have whatever is on someone's plate even if there's a bit still available on the table, and getting super whiny when someone says no. I feel like this is a good time to mention that I was the only minor aside from her there this night. I was about 14-15 at the time, so of course I was put in babysitting duty. Even though she is 8 and actually pretty smart, or so I thought, she was acting like a 3-year-old toddler and climbing all over my mum because she wanted my mum's necklace. We'd already seen her snap another lady's necklace who she'd done the same routine with already, so my mum said a very clear no and proceeded to ignore her. Her mum laughed and commented on how cute her childishness is. My mum openly disagreed and said that the 5-year-old kids she teaches at school are better behaved than her. The little girl didn't like this and tugged on my mum's necklace, which choked her, in an attempt to break the clasp. I quickly grabbed her under her arms and picked her off my mum before she could do so and asked if she wanted to go for a swim, which is just the first thing I could think of. So I'd gotten changed and I was very much looking forward to getting into the pool because my back was very sore from sunburn. While I was waiting for the little girl to change, her mum approaches me and starts chatting. She was asking me about my dog who we'd bought with us and mentioned that she wanted to get one for her daughter. I already knew that was a terrible idea, but I didn't say anything about it. Her daughter then comes crashing out of the house and rushes straight over to my dog holding a long plastic tube. Her mum laughs and asks what she's got. The daughter explains that she found it in her room and she wants my dog to chase it. Now here's the thing about my dog, he's a small dog and very friendly. He adores people and playing with them, but he doesn't chase sticks. Squeaky toy? Absolutely. Tennis ball? If you're lucky. Running around the garden? Loves it. Chase a stick? No, never. So she chases my dog around the garden for a while and he seemed very excited and happy, so I just watched them for a bit thinking it was fine. She throws the pipe and my dog just looks at it very confused. He continues to try and play chasey and doesn't even try to go for the stick. The mum, who was still with me, laughs and says she thinks my dog's retarded. I got a little annoyed and says he's just not stupid enough to chase a stick. That's when the daughter tries again. And once again he doesn't chase it. So she walks up to him and slaps him hard in the back. I instantly run over and scoop him up and yell at her for hitting him. She just glares at me and says he deserved it. The mum then comes over and says the dog is fine and there's no harm done. I explain to her that she has no hope of ever owning a dog if her daughter abuses them so easily. The mum got shocked and annoyed and the daughter looked so excited. Apparently she didn't know her mum wanted to get her a dog and that is all she cared about. So her mum proceeds to berate me for spoiling the surprise and I just took it while holding onto my dog. The daughter then pipes up, I want a dog just like this one, but it should be able to play with sticks. The mum Warden says that she can make that happen. She then says maybe we can look after Dougal, my dog, for a few days, just so we can get a feel for it. I very simply said no and explained that I don't trust anyone who hits dogs for not playing. The mum, while a little annoyed, understood and said she'd never let her daughter hit a puppy when they got one. I basically nodded my head and made my way to leave and go back inside since I decided I didn't want to swim after all. When I got in, I put my dog down and was surprised to see the daughter had followed me. She knelt down to my dog's level and apologized for hitting him and asked him if she'd hurt the puppies. I was very confused by this. 1. My dog's male, he can't get pregnant. 2. He's desexed, so he really can't get pregnant. She then looked up at me and asked if she thought I'd hurt her puppy. I said no and asked what puppy she meant. She explains that since her mum said that she could make that happen the same way her mum said she was trying to make another baby, she had deducted that that meant Dougal was pregnant with her puppy. I swear to God I laughed for a solid 10 minutes. I explained to her that Dougal was a boy so he couldn't get pregnant, so he didn't have her puppy. Apparently this was the wrong thing to say and she burst into tears. She ran outside to her mum and I could hear everything she was saying. She was saying stuff about how I was bullying her and how I said I was going to kill her puppy. Her mum marches in and demands to know what her daughter meant by that. I simply explained that her daughter thought Dougal was pregnant and I told her he was a male, so that's impossible. I swear her mum's face was amazing when I said this. She looked ready to give up. But it was at that moment her face lit up as she had an amazing idea. She said we should breed Dougal with another dog of her daughter's choice to make the perfect puppy for her. She looked delighted at her genius idea and I got up to explain to her quietly that Dougal was desexed, so that was impossible. I once again had to sit through another lecture about what a terrible decision that was, and it was so inconsiderate to do that to her daughter. I was 3 when this decision was made. WTF. Of course her mum then has to turn to her daughter and rather than explaining why Dougal couldn't have puppies, she says my name says that she doesn't want Dougal around girl dogs, so he won't be having puppies. The daughter then made this disgusted face and glared at me. I shrug and just go with it cause I wasn't explaining why we had cut our dog's balls off today. I walked past the mum and made my way over to my mum to ask if we could leave soon. Before I could, I suddenly felt a blinding pain coming from my back and I screamed. The daughter had run behind me in rage and slapped her hands into the sunburn on my back and dug her nails in. I obviously pushed her off and she didn't fall over, but she did trip and I got away from her as quickly as possible. My mum had grabbed a chilled bottle of wine and made me turn around so she could press it against where she had grabbed. She then suddenly started yelling for a first aid box because apparently I was bleeding from she had scratched down my blistered back. The daughter was crying and the mum stormed over and snatched the wine bottle away from my mum, smacking me in the back of the head in the process. And yelled at me for pushing her daughter on her birthday. It wasn't even her birthday, just her party, who was sat on a step wiping away her tears but grinning at me. My mum was furious about how her daughter behaved. Like, imagine the level of anger every triggered entitled mum has. Yeah, my mum had 30x more fury than that. She started yelling that she needed to discipline her daughter at least once in her life or she is never going to grow out of her argumentative 2-year-old phase, like she should have done years ago. Apparently the daughter had also called an ambulance 2 days before to prank them, saying that mummy has broken my arm, I need the hospital. And the mum had taken a photo after the police had arrived saying how her daughter was gonna become a proper prankster in the future and had taken her out to dinner because it was just so cute. So yeah, we left pretty quickly after that and we've only seen them a couple times since. Luckily they still don't have a dog. Apparently breeding the perfect puppy is more expensive than they thought, so they just have to look for one instead. Shaggy uses his power to save me from EM. This isn't even a joke, okay, so I was about 14 at the time and for the summer we were going to Universal Studios. So I was sitting around waiting for my mum to show up because we all decided to split up. Mum had my bros, who were 6, so I didn't want to hang around with them. So I was sitting around on my phone waiting for her to show up because we agreed to meet up and go find somewhere to eat together. I was sitting around playing Fortnite on my phone when a wild EK appeared and started looking over my shoulder. I didn't really mind, kids do that. Then he asks me for a go. I was like, no sorry, you can still watch though. The ek looked really upset. He mumbles out, but Fortnite is my favorite game. I reply with, I'm sorry, but you could run off the moment I hand my phone over. He walks off, pretty sad, and I thought that was the end of that. And then the EM shows up. I am like, hey, can I help you? She responds with, why won't you give my son a go? I parrot what I said to her son, but she's not buying it. The EM says, why are you so selfish that you can't let him have a go? He gets bullied at school and this is his time to be happy and you're ruining it. I am fucking dumbfounded at this bitch. She just starts screaming, what the fuck is wrong with you? You son of a bitch, stuff like that. And then Shaggy shows up and says in Shaggy's voice, so he was technically staying in character. Hey miss, don't be like that, it's really starting to upset Scoob. The EM is like, WTF, and just backs away slowly with the most confused look on her face. And then she runs off for some reason. My mom shows up about 10 minutes later and I explained the situation to her. She laughed so hard and said if I was Shaggy I would have slapped her so fucking hard just out of earshot of my bros. Luckily. So yeah, Shaggy used his power to get rid of an EM and her offspring.